Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum. Today we are going to talk about the concluding lecture on the feature writing. And this is basically what we should say, an advisory lecture for all those people who are writing features, and especially who are about to write or who are novices. Remember one thing, that there are certain aspects of writing which are usually missed by even the experts. Novices जो शुरू करने वाले हैं या जो नए लिखने वाले हैं, that is besides the point. लेकिन there are certain issues which must be tackled, must be taken care of by all and sundry. Even as an individual, one must believe that one has to do what? Has to come up with improvements constantly in their not only write-ups, personalities, knowledge. Because as long as you are not improving yourself, you can't stay in the field. And as they say that there is always a slot available at the top, so never think that there are so many people already writing and you might lose your chance. But one of the things is that obviously with the passage of time you be constantly improving. No doubt that you can improve, everybody can improve. When every person can improve, why not a person with lesser capabilities? You can make it happen for you as well. So improving, and in the perspective of feature writing, a guideline for your write-ups, for writing well and for understanding well, is actually the crux of our lecture today. We are going to talk about not only the personality improvements through knowledge, rather the write-ups as well. So what can you do is actually constantly improve. There is one problem, और बहुत सारे लोगों के साथ ये प्रॉब्लम है. जब आपके जहन में ये सोच आ जाए that you're good at doing something, you stop improving. Remember one thing. Others say that you're good at writing, but for sure you have to improve. And if you do not improve yourself with the passage of time, you are actually going to fall back. You will not be actually going on the ladder which are going to take you to prosperity or progress. One of the things which you must understand as a novice, as a feature writer, is that improving is the key to your success. So there is another debate as far as great writers are concerned, and that debate is a usual one, and you might have heard about it, and it is mostly about creative writing or something which is actually what? Something you must have heard as far as the other areas are concerned, and that is whether somebody is born naturally to become a great writer or there is something which he can inculcate. No one knows the answer, frankly. कि एक अजीम राइटर पैदा ही अजीम राइटर होता है या अदरवाइज वो बन सकता है. लेकिन इसके कुछ जवाबात हैं, कुछ एस्पेक्ट्स हैं जो कि कंसिडर लाजमी करने चाहिए. कैपेबिलिटीज़ नो डाउट हर शख्स में होती हैं, नेचुरल कैपेबिलिटीज़ भी होती हैं, और सम पीपल डू इट थ्रू शेयर हार्ड वर्क. अगर आपके पास कैपेबिलिटीज़ हैं, बहुत सिंपल सी बात है ये समझने की कि कैपेबिलिटीज़ होते हुए भी अगर आप हार्ड वर्क नहीं करते, यू कांट सक्सीड. आपको मुसलसल कोशिश करना पड़ती है. ये कहा जाए कि आप बोल बहुत अच्छा सकते हैं, आप लिख बहुत अच्छा सकते हैं, तो जब तक आप बोलेंगे नहीं, आप सही प्लेटफॉर्म इस्तेमाल नहीं करेंगे, और जब तक आप लिखेंगे नहीं और सही प्लेटफॉर्म पे नहीं लिखेंगे, तो ऑब्वियसली उन कैपेबिलिटीज़ का जो कि आपको नेचर ने दी हैं, जो कि आपको अल्लाह ने दी हैं, वो आपके साथ कोई जस्टिफिकेशन नहीं बनती. तो यू हैव टू डू व्हाट यू हैव टू जस्टिफाई योर natural capabilities through hard work. That is the line. That is the punch. बहुत सारे लोग ये सोचते हैं कि लैंग्वेज जो है वो इम्प्रूव की जा सकती है. यस, लैंग्वेज इज़ डेफिनेटली इम्प्रूव्ड. कुछ लोगों में ये कैपेसिटी ज़्यादा होती है दैट दे कैन imbibe anything told to them through minor efforts, but obviously they have to effort for such things. Now, is good writing something that anyone with the right amount of determination and training is capable of producing? It might have been true, but obviously there are certain things which you should be actually trying out all the time and trying to do what? Trying to concentrate on the particular areas which are actually your weaknesses. With the passage of time, obviously, if you have the capabilities of doing something, you can improve upon those things. Hence, if you are not a natural born writer, it does not mean that you cannot produce good write-ups. Obviously, good writing is something which has to be observed, learnt, and repeated. Remember one thing, good writing is to be observed, learnt, and repeated. No good writer can say that it is all natural, no hard work. Hard work is definitely involved there, and there are certain rules through which and certain advices through which you can actually improve your natural capabilities, which actually become your strengths. So if you can't write well, it does not mean that you should be doing what? You should be actually being disheartened, or you think that you can't actually improve yourself, you can't be a good writer. You can be. Yes, there is only one thing and one angle you must be taking to your considerations, to your state of mind, and that is actually what is your liking or disliking. If you like something, then obviously you should be doing that. And you must be trying to pursue a career which is actually near to your or closer to your heart. So something which is closer to your heart and you work accordingly, then definitely there are more and more chances of success instead of working on something which is not actually liked by you, or which you think that you can't be able to cope with the situation. So Crack says that if you have a liking, there is a possibility that you might like or lack certain qualities, but there are reasons that you can improve upon your better chances through hard work and through learning, which are primarily the constant things in your life. It may be true that great writers are born the way they are, but they have to work hard, and there is a steady devotion to the craft. And if it is not the case, then none of them could have been a great writer. So a great writer, apart from being born as a great writer, is actually working on their subjects constantly. बहुत सारे मिसालें ऐसी हैं, बहुत सारे शायर हजरात जो पोइट्स हैं, उनकी भी मिसालें ऐसी हैं कि वो एक शेर लिखते, उसके बाद काट देते, वर्ड्स बेहतर चूज करते, एक्सप्रेशंस बेहतर चूज करते. ऑलमोस्ट ऑल राइटर्स डू दिस. और किसी शख्स का ये भी ख्याल है कि जब तक आप 1,00,000 शेर लिख ना लें, उस वक्त तक आप प्रिंट नहीं करवा सकते हैं. अगरचे हमारे मुल्क में जो सिचुएशन है वो थोड़ी सी बदल चुकी है. अब कोई भी शख्स जो है वो शेर लिख लेता है, उसके बाद किताब भी छप जाती है और वो शायर भी बन जाते हैं. तो नतीजा क्या होता है? बहुत सारी किताबें आती हैं लेकिन वो बार बार पब्लिश नहीं होती. गालिब माना सदियों पुराने शायर हैं, लेकिन क्या है कि ही इज एक्चुअली not only a naturally born poet, rather he must have learnt a lot in his life and must have worked really hard in his life. So you have to do what? You have to actually come up with certain hard work tactics where you're actually improving with the passage of time. First thing, you must believe in yourself that you love writing. If you do not like writing or love writing, there is no need that you should be pursuing a career in writing. It is because of the reason that if you do not like writing, do not love writing, then there is no need that you should be going to a profession where writing is the business. If you think that somebody is actually going to push you to write, it's wrong. Once or twice is fair enough. But after some time, what will be the case? You will not be there to write. For instance, आपको जो 11 बजे कोई असाइनमेंट दे दी जाती है, आपके एडिटर आपसे कहते हैं कि जी आप इस चीज के ऊपर मुझे काम कर दीजिए. आप सोचते हैं कि what the hell is this? Why I am doing this? That is a bad sense. So आपको सबसे पहले जो सोचना चाहिए वो ये कि you are finding this as a passion. अगर आप ये सोचें कि ये काम है तो फिर ये कोई बेहतर काम नहीं है आपके लिए. आपको सोचना चाहिए कि आप ये काम इसलिए कर रहे हैं कि दैट इट इज क्लोजर टू योर हार्ट. बॉस्टन ग्लोब के जो राइटर भी हैं, कॉलमनिस्ट भी हैं, डोनाल्ड एम मरे, ही सेज राइटिंग इज बुक इज लाइक rearing children. Willpower has very little to do with that. If you have a little baby crying in the middle of the night, and if you depend only on willpower to get you out of bed to feed the baby, that baby will starve. You do it out of love. Willpower is a weak idea. Love is strong. You don't have to scourge yourself with a cat o' nine tails to go to the baby. You got the baby out of love for that particular baby. That is the same way you go to the desk. I write because I love writing. If you think that you don't love writing, you're actually doing what? You're actually not justifying your profession, your thought of coming to this particular field. So you are actually not into a business. You're actually into something really different. You must have seen कि आपके मुआशरे में जितने लोग हैं उनमें से हार्डली कुछ लोग राइटर होते हैं. 1% भी कहना शायद बहुत बड़ा फिगर होगा, बल्कि इससे बहुत कम लोग जो हैं, मे बी 10 or 15 out of 1,000 are writers. The rest are what? The rest are actually speakers. Speakers कौन से? जो सिर्फ बोलते हैं. बाकी मांदा जो लोग बच जाते हैं वो कौन से लोग होते हैं? जिन्होंने कि सिर्फ बात करनी होती है और बात करके वो खामोश हो जाते हैं. राइटिंग जो है उसकी वजह ये है कि अगर आप कुछ लिख सकते हैं तो फिर आप जो हैं वो एक अच्छे राइटर भी हैं, आप एक अच्छे कंट्रीब्यूटर भी हैं सोसाइटी के लिए. दैट इज द बेसिक थिंग. यू शुड हैव ए पैशन फॉर राइटिंग. सेकेंड इज you must love reading. If you don't love reading, you can't be a better writer. Remember this thing, that reading is a must. As I mentioned in my first lecture, that you must be a good reader, an avid reader, to do what? To write well. How it is important? The reason is very simple. You read, you learn. You write, you become an expert. This is where you must be taking time out to read. And if you don't love reading, then you should not be questioning yourself that why you are not a good writer and this writing is not a good profession for you. It is only when you read a lot about your topic of interest and about the specialization, secondly about general knowledge, which helps you become a good writer. Reading is not just acquiring knowledge, it helps you learn about the language as well. Knowledge आप लोगों से बात करके भी ले सकते हैं, बहुत सारे लोग लेक्चर्स भी सुनते हैं, बहुत सारे लोग जो हैं वो लेक्चर्स डिलीवर भी करते हैं, लेकिन जो डिलीवर करने वाले होते हैं वो पढ़ने वाले भी होते हैं. आपको पढ़ना भी पड़ता है. फॉर इंस्टेंस, इफ आई एम स्टैंडिंग right now in front of you, मैं अपने प्रोफेशन के लिहाज से जर्नलिस्ट होने के साथ साथ मैंने लिखा भी होगा, लेकिन जब मुझे आपके पास बात करना पड़ती है इसका मतलब सिर्फ और सिर्फ ये नहीं है that I am talking to you through the experiences only. It is not like that. Experiences जो मैं ऑब्जर्व करता हूं, जो कि मेरे प्रोफेशन में इस टाइम पे हो रहा है, वो तो बात ठीक है। शायद मैं कहीं से सुन लेता हूँगा, खुद भी ऑब्जर्व करता हूँगा, या कभी कभार कोई आर्टिकल उसके ऊपर आ जाता होगा, मैं पढ़ लेता हूँगा। लेकिन मैं आपके सामने आने के लिए मुझे किताब देखनी पड़ती है कि कोई नई बात तो नहीं आ गई। दिस इज वेयर योर रीडिंग कम्स इन। इफ यू आर नॉट रीडिंग देन यू आर मिसिंग अ लॉट। कुछ 20 पेजेस पढ़ेंगे, कुछ 25 पेजेस पढ़ेंगे, आपको अपने टॉपिक की, जो कि आपका स्पेशलाइज्ड एरिया है और जो भी जनरल नॉलेज है, आप उसके ऊपर बात कर सकते हैं। सेकेंडली, जो रीडिंग है इज पार्ट ऑफ द नेचुरल प्रोसेस। आप नेचुरली लैंग्वेज सीखते हैं। जब आप नेचुरली लैंग्वेज सीख रहे होते हैं, यू आर एक्चुअली डूइंग व्हाट? यू आर एक्चुअली लर्निंग टू राइट बेटर। रिमेंबर वन थिंग, दे से that reading is not just for acquiring knowledge, it helps in learning about different writing styles, ultimately allowing you to eventually develop your own style. आपके अंदर स्टाइल एक अपना होता है, लेकिन जब आप पढ़ते हैं तो आपकी वो जो रीडिंग है, that is actually what? That is actually giving strength to your style, and there you are actually a better writer. The more one he reads, the more the process of writing he develops. For one is not reading only. आप वो जो चारा कुतरने वाली मशीन तो नहीं ना होता इंसान जब पढ़ रहा होता है। He is actually doing what? He is actually learning. Absorb कर रहे होते हैं चीजें। आप ऐसी तो बात नहीं है कि आप सिर्फ और सिर्फ पढ़ रहे हैं और आपके दिमाग में कुछ नहीं है। अगर ऐसी सूरत हाल हो तो ठहर जाते हैं। They say that whenever you are reading, you're actually chewing words, you're nurturing ideas, and you're inculcating the thought into your own thoughts to improve your own self. That is the thing. There you're actually doing what? You're actually improving upon yourself. Stephen Koch, a Princeton and Columbia writing teacher, says you should read and read and read. That is your only hope for ever developing a decent individual style. So keep this thing in your mind. Be an avid reader. Read more so that you can do what? You can be a better writer. Without reading, actually, you can't be a better writer. Secondly, आप पढ़ते भी हैं, आप लिखते भी हैं, लेकिन आपके बहुत सारे जो हैं वो रोल मॉडल्स भी हो सकते हैं। ये एक बहुत टीडियस सी डिस्कशन भी है, ट्रिकी आइडियाज भी है इसमें कि आप रोल मॉडल्स जो हैं वो कैसे ढूंढते हैं। बहुत सारे अच्छा लिखने वाले लोग भी होते हैं। अब रोल मॉडल्स के साथ रोल मॉडल्स को फॉलो करने की एक प्रॉब्लम है। वो प्रॉब्लम ये है कि यू कैन बी एक्यूज्ड ऑफ प्लेजरिज्म और कॉपीइंग और इमिटेशन। दो स्कूल ऑफ थॉट्स हैं कि आप पढ़ें जरूर, कॉपी ना करें। सेकंड स्कूल ये है कि आप कॉपी कर लें, इमिटेट कर लें, प्लेजराइज ना करें। मसला क्या है कि जब आप किसी बड़े राइटर को पढ़ते हैं और आप मुसलसल पढ़ते रहते हैं, तो आप नेचुरली उनके बहुत सारे एक्सप्रेशन जो हैं वो उनको इस्तेमाल करते हैं। नेचुरली अगर वो आपके साथ आ जाएं, नेचुरली अगर आप उनको अपने साथ डेवलप कर लें, दैट इज समथिंग डिफरेंट। लेकिन कॉपी करना जो है, दैट इज समथिंग विच इज कंसिडर्ड टू बी अ बैड आइडिया। हाउएवर, आपके जहन में जो एक्सप्रेशंस रह जाते हैं, समटाइम्स जो है वो ऐसे एक्सप्रेशंस यूज कर लेते हैं आपके फेवरेट राइटर्स जो हैं, जब वो ऐसे एक्सप्रेशंस यूज कर रहे होते हैं, ऑब्वियसली आप बहुत कुछ जो है ना वो अपने अंदर उनको इम्बाइब कर रहे होते हैं। Consequently, you can use part of them, but the way it comes to you. जो दो डिबेट्स की मैंने आपसे बात की है, वो बात क्या है कि आप क्या कर सकते हैं कि जब आप लिख रहे हो तो वो जो राइटर का राइटअप है वो आपके सामने मौजूद नहीं होना चाहिए, क्योंकि इंसान बेसिकली आसाइश पसंद है और वो आसानियाँ ढूंढता है. When the writer's write-up is there in front of you and that person is actually your role model, you tend to do what? You tend to follow even the expressions. You write down those expressions as well. Consequently, that comes out as what? As a copying material. So avoid such a situation. Imitation या plagiarism या copying are three different things. Plagiarism is totally out. Imitate आप कर सकते हैं, लेकिन उसका नुकसान ये होगा, you will not be able to develop your own style. Consequently, you will be actually a photostat of another person. So what you should be doing is actually you should be reading to imbibe language, knowledge, and learn about new things. Maybe the person whom you're reading and who is your role model is actually what? He is actually the person whom you follow for the rest of your life. So, lessons are learned by writing down turns of phrases of others, but do not copy, analyze. If you have liked a particular phrase or a sentence which has appealed to you, ask yourself why you liked it. Analyze it, break it, and then use it. Don't use it directly. You must use your own words to become a writer you want to be, not others' words. That's one of the advices. But you need to learn loads of initially and analyzing style of other writers. That's also one of the suggestions. Through this method, you are actually going to have an intimate understanding of the good writers and the construction of sentences. Stephen Koch, as I mentioned, is actually doing what? He's saying, do not fear imitation. That's what, again, the American thought. Nobody sensible pursues an imitative style as a long-term goal. Maybe initially you can do that, but obviously you can improve upon that. He adds further, but all accomplished writers know that the notion of pure originality is a childish fantasy. Up to a point of imitation is the path to discovery and essential to growth. Hence, you do what? You are actually imitating to some extent, but to improve only. It is not like that you are imitating to do what? You're imitating actually to become a plagiarist. जो शख्स कॉपीज करता है और उसके अलावा और कुछ नहीं करता, ये काम आप मत कीजिए. सिर्फ और सिर्फ इनिशियली आप कुछ स्टाइल पढ़िए. जब आपका अपना स्टाइल जो है वो पक्का हो जाए, you are actually thinking that your style is not going to change, then you can do what? Then you can read as much you like. लेकिन फिर भी हमारे यहाँ जो सिचुएशन है जिसमें कि मैंने आपसे सेकंड जो डिबेट की बात की थी, imitation, copying, plagiarism, these are actually what? These are not advisable. Develop your own style. वजह क्या है कि जर्नलिज्म मेरे नज़दीक और वैसे भी इज़ अ वेरी स्मॉल वर्ल्ड. आज आप एक आर्टिकल प्रिंट करवाते हैं अखबार में, next day that is, or on the same day that is on the internet. Some person sitting in the remotest or in the backyard of America or Europe can access that. आपने वहाँ से कुछ कॉपी किया या प्लेजराइज किया, उसका नतीजा क्या निकलेगा? You will be a copied person who is actually imitating to such an extent that he is borrowing not only ideas, rather the language as well. So avoid it. The fourth suggestion is that you should be a specialist. No doubt, it takes time, it takes a lot of effort, and it takes a lot of courage as well to be a specialist of one field. वो कहते हैं ना कि जैक ऑफ ऑल ट्रेड्स, शायद एक्सप्रेशन खूबसूरत हो किसी शख्स के लिए, लेकिन जनरल राइटर्स बहुत ज़्यादा होते हैं, स्पेशलिस्ट का ऑनर बहुत ज़्यादा होता है. दे आर मोर इन डिमांड. So try to be a specialist. Maybe starting off as a general writer, ultimately you become what? you become a specialist. So it is not going to take you very long to become a specialist. Easy हो जाएगा आपके लिए. आप उस सब्जेक्ट्स पे जो हैं वो बुक्स पढ़ सकते हैं, उस सब्जेक्ट्स पे मैगजीन्स पढ़ सकते हैं, और उन सब्जेक्ट्स पे जब आप लिखेंगे, people will recognize you that this gentleman is Middle East affairs expert, or this gentleman is what, an environmentalist, this gentleman is a human rights activist, or something like that, or whatsoever. If you're working in a political field, so obviously people will consider that you are expert of the religious politics, or you're expert of the democratic politics of Pakistan. So you have to decide that what kind of specialist you would like to be. Read prodigiously about the topic, talk to people, read books, magazines, and constantly visit or comb the web so that you can get more and more knowledge. You should be well versed of that particular language or area. Remember, when you're an expert of a particular area, you are actually using the same jargons, you will be reading the same language, you will be coming up with the same expressions, which will be taken naturally inside you, and you will be absorbing all the time. So they say that you should be actually acting like what, a sponge. एक आपने foam देखा होगा. Foam क्या है? आप पानी के ऊपर रखते हैं, it absorbs water. So you should be acting like a sponge. कि आप चीज़ों को absorb constantly करें, because those help you a lot. If it is not enough to read, then you need to do what? You need to be on the ground all the time. पढ़ तो आपने लिया, आपने बंद कमरे में बैठ के पढ़ लिया, लेकिन अगर आपने जो ग्राउंड रियलिटी है वो नहीं देखी, अल्टीमेटली क्या होगा कि आप जो फर्स्ट हैंड इंफॉर्मेशन है वो नहीं ले सकते. सो यू हैव टू बी available, you have to move around, you have to meet people, you have to be at the press conferences, you should be visiting the exhibitions, you should be going to the seminars, workshops, doing all these things so that you can be expert of it. Specialty writers often tend to do what? Negativity comes in their minds that they are the experts and they can be treated like that since they can do everything the way they want. Speciality does not mean that it is actually what? It is the finality. So you are, remember one thing, you are never a finalist or the final authority on something. You have to constantly do what? If you are an expert, if you are a specialist, you have to constantly improve as well. And you have to act as a specialist through constant improvements. When you become a specialist, you obviously carve out a niche, a specialist corner for you, और उसका नतीजा ये निकलता है कि लोग आपको जो है वो जान जाते हैं कि you are such person and you can do certain things. Fifthly, versatility. You should be a versatile writer. It does not mean that if you're a political writer and if somebody asks you to write on social problems, you won't be able to write on that. Please. Your expertise is one thing. Your versatility or being a versatile writer is another thing. You have to do what? You have to be versatile. Somebody asks you to write on society and you're a political writer, or you are into religious parties, politics, or something like that, you are of international politics expert, something, आपको अपनी सोसाइटी का भी पता होना चाहिए. अगर आपको कहा जाता है कि आप लिखें तो आप बेहतर लिखने की पोजीशन में हो. अब वर्सेटिलिटी ऑब्वियसली ऑब्जर्वेशन के थ्रू आती है, जो कि आप कॉन्स्टेंटली while moving in the society, while moving in the circles, while doing certain things which are concerning your own area, you are also actually doing what? You are in a better position to analyze other things as well. Being a specialist does not mean that you become a rigid and unable to do something else. You have to specialize in something, but you should be able to do a broad range of stories. You should be as diverse as a writer. That is one of the most important things. A good idea is to expose yourself to a handful of experiences and exposures. Russell Eshelman Jr., the Philadelphia Inquirer, says, if you have any talent as a writer, you have to be versatile. I can write a long story, I can write a short story, I can write a feature, I can write a hard news story. You have to be able to do that as a reporter. If you tend to write the same kind of story all the time, you are not really growing as a writer. Same stuff, kuch change nahi hai usme. You are actually writing the same things. So you are not actually a versatile writer. You have to be a versatile as well. But when it will come to your specialty, or when it will come to your own area, you will be the best of all. So you should be able to write something better instead of you become just a specialist and rigid about something. Next, which is one of the hardest things. कौन कहता है कि मैं बुरा हूँ, मैं सबसे अच्छा हूँ? कोई शख्स अपने आप को जो है वो ये नहीं सोचना चाहता कि उससे बेहतर कोई है. बहुत सारे लोगों का ये ख्याल होता है कि उनसे बेहतर कोई नहीं है. मैं अगर आपसे बात कर रहा हूँ तो मेरे से एज ए टीचर बहुत सारे लोग बेहतर होंगे. बहुत सारे मेरे टीचर्स ऐसे होंगे जो मेरे से बहुत बेहतर हैं. राइटर्स सारे के सारे मेरे से बेहतर हो सकते हैं. मुझे ये कंसिडर करना चाहिए कि मैं फाइनल अथॉरिटी नहीं हूँ किसी चीज़ पे. आप लोगों को बात कहिए, आपकी बात लॉजिक पे हो, then that is something else. It means that you should be what? Your harshest critic. आप अपने आप को जो है कभी भी कोई तोप चीज़ मत समझिए. आपने अपने आप को जो है वो एनालाइज करना है कॉन्स्टेंटली, सो दैट यू कैन इम्प्रूव. और जो अच्छे राइटर्स होते हैं, दे आर रेयरली सेटिस्फाइड विद देयर एफर्ट्स. दे डोंट थिंक दैट व्हाट दे हैव रिटन इज व्हाट द अल्टीमेट. वो कभी भी जो कोशिश करते हैं जैसे कि यहाँ पे इम्प्रूवमेंट हो सकती थी, इसमें ये एडिशन किया जा सकता था, ये कोई चीज़ अच्छी नहीं गई. दिस इज़ व्हाट इट इज़. यू हैव टू डू व्हाट, यू हैव टू बी एन एक्सपर्ट ऑफ ऑल द थिंग्स. बाज़ औक़ात वो एक चीज़ लिखते हैं, मिटा देते हैं, फिर कुछ लिखते हैं, फिर मिटा देते हैं. अल्टीमेटली दे कम अप विद समथिंग बेटर. दे आर ऑलवेज ट्राइंग टू राइट मोर कंपेलिंग राइट अप, a stronger angle, more colorful quotes, not trite quotes, to spice up their stories. Their conclusions are really forceful, and they are leaving lasting impressions upon the minds of the readers. So you are constantly doing what? You're constantly reviewing your work. Once you have finished a work, you are actually doing what? You reread your story. Constantly, you are actually doing what? You are actually trying to improve. When doing so, you're actually acting as a role model or a role play for the reader. So pretend whenever you're reading your story that you're reading it for the first time, and there are lots of changes you can make and lots of things you can do. That's what. What questions do you want to have in your story, and whether you have answered those questions or not? Was the conclusion memorable one? Was the lead you have written is good enough to attract the reader's attention? Do this until you are sufficiently satisfied to think that you have answered all the questions. As a good writer, remember one thing: you are never ever satisfied. As we have mentioned earlier, हमारी इस चीज़ के ऊपर पहले भी बात हो चुकी है, और आप जानते हैं कि आपको एक्यूरेसी के बारे में बहुत ही कंसर्न होना चाहिए. You should be constantly thinking of ways of improving what you're doing. But at the same time, you have to do what? You must be concentrating hard to be accurate. That is what we call be a stickler for accuracy. You should be accurate. वो आपने सुना होगा कि हमारे कुछ लोग ऐसे होते हैं जिनके बारे में कहते हैं कि जी वो झूठ नहीं बोलता है, या कुछ लोगों के बारे में ये भी कहा जा सकता होगा कि जी वो सिर्फ झूठ बोलता है, सच नहीं बोलता है. तो दैट इज व्हाट इज द इम्प्रेशन. अगर आपका ये इम्प्रेशन हो कि आप जो फिगर दे रहे हैं दैट इज करेक्ट, उसमें कोई चीज गलत नहीं है, तो आपको कोई शख्स एज ए राइटर कभी नहीं कहेगा कि आपने वो गलत लिखा था. शिकायत हो सकती हैं, लेकिन इसका मतलब हरगिज़ ये नहीं है कि आपके ऊपर कोई इल्ज़ाम आ सकता है। हर शख्स गलतियाँ करता है, नो वन इज़ अ परफेक्ट, बट जो गलतियाँ कम करते हैं दे आर मोर सक्सेसफुल एंड दे एंजॉय बेटर रेपुटेशन। सो ट्राई टू एंजॉय बेटर रेपुटेशन थ्रू व्हाट that writers must take great care to get their facts right. That is the first suggestion. If they are not going to do so, they are going to actually lose the greatest of their assets, that is the credibility. आपकी credibility होनी चाहिए. If you are known to regularly get, for instance, आपके बारे में कह दिया जाए कि you are careless or reckless about giving small facts right, आप बड़ी बातें तो बिल्कुल ठीक करते हैं, छोटी बातें जो हैं वो गलत कर देते हैं, नाम के स्पेलिंग्स गलत कर दिए, कोई फिगर दी छोटे लेवल की थी या जिसकी कम इंपॉर्टेंस थी वो गलत दे दी। क्यों? आप कभी ये काम मत कीजिए। अगर आपका ये भी इंप्रेशन हो कि आप स्पेलिंग्स गलत लिख देते हैं, नामों के स्पेलिंग गलत लिख देते हैं, इट इज़ ऑल्सो बैड थिंग। इंप्रेशन आपका ये होना चाहिए, दिस स्टोरी बाय फलां पर्सन, it must be altogether correct. That should be your reputation as far as the accuracy is concerned, and you should be coming up with that. There are thumb rules to avoid such mistakes. The first one is get it right the first time. Take necessary notes, time and care, and check the sources, even the spellings, names mentioned, whatsoever there, so that you should not be committing any mistakes. For instance, a few days back there was a story और उसमें नाम लिखा हुआ था कि रफ़ीक, the other person was शफीक। नाम तो है जी स्टोरी में, लेकिन जिसको हम पंजाबी में कहते हैं ना कि अग्गा पिछा तो होएगा ना, शफीक और रफ़ीक, whether it was Shafiq Ali or Muhammad Rafiq or something, it shows the reporter lacked the sense of giving complete names. It falls under what? Under inaccurate reporting if it is considered to be stringently. So your all details should be right straight away in the first go. Don't fact check after the fact. If you have checked it, if you know that this is the right, then don't bother other people to check them again and again. However, you can do it during the reporting effort. Secondly, do not rely on memory and never assume. आप मेरी बात सुन रहे होंगे, आपने कुछ लिखा होगा, आप ये कहेंगे ये तो जनरल सी बात है, मेरे जहन में रह जाएगी। कभी भी कोई चीज़ ये अगर आप ये सोचें कि ये आपने लिख ली है तो आपने इसको दोबारा देखा नहीं है तो आपके जहन में रह गई है, या आपने सुन लिया तो आपके जहन में रह जाएगी, इट्स ए रेयरिटी। कुछ लोगों के शायद ये चीज़ ठीक हो। और दूसरी बात ये, एस्यूम मत कीजिए कि हाँ ऐसा हो चुका होगा इज़ नॉट न्यूज़वर्थी, इट्स इनकरेक्ट। आप जो कर रहे हैं दैट शुड बी देयर, दैट शुड बी नोन टू द पीपल, दैट इज़ व्हाट यू हैव टू, थ्रू constant referral to your notes, what you have taken, to the other material. Don't make assumptions of the facts especially. Details of course should be written with you, and you need that your all notes should be there and properly placed. The third thing is verify that you have got it right. You have to consider that after writing, you reread the portions, you recheck the facts, you recheck the figures. And important, that thing must not be missed. And secondly, these facts and figures are always very important when you are actually doing what? When you are actually writing something about a complex issue. That's you have to do. Next, how smart with your numbers. You must be actually smart with the numbers. Like dealing with numbers is always a tricky thing. प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस आपने अटेंड की है या कहीं पे आप गए हैं या किसी ने आपसे बात की है, अपने फिगर्स लाजमी चेक कर लीजिए. Never misquote those figures. When writing a feature story involving lots of numbers, make sure that you tell the story in a way that allows people to understand the significance of those numbers. आपने अगर सिर्फ numbers बता दिए हैं और उनकी कोई significance नहीं बताई, that is also a bad thing. You should be making it clear. इसमें एक और जो चीज़ की जा सकती है, बल्कि दो चीज़ें की जा सकती हैं. एक तो relativity है. numbers आपके पास आ गए, बेहतर यह है कि आप उनको relatively डील कर लें. जी हमारे मुल्क में इतनी लिटरेसी रेट है और इंडिया हमारा नेबरिंग कंट्री है, उसमें इतनी है, हमारे मुल्क में इतने कंप्यूटर यूजर्स हैं, दूसरे में इतने कम कंप्यूटर यूजर्स हैं. These you have to consider, and then obviously you have to constantly do one thing, that you should be coming up with the comparison, so that the relativity is actually doing what is actually clearing things, and you can do it, and it is obviously adding to the value. Then there's another thing of rounding of figures. If you are particularly giving kg 999.0056, so do something rounding off near to the positive one, where it is not a far-fetched one. For instance, if it is 0.86 or 0.96, so you can round it to the nearest one. Like if it is 6.96, you can say about 7. But it does not mean that when the rounding off is actually very tricky, you are actually doing what? You're making it round. Avoid it, because in certain cases when that point is also very important. So write nearly doubled or about 3 times as much as, and remain both accurate and understandable. For instance, if you have mentioned that it is about 3 times, then write it 3 times. And if the time period is mentioned like that of 29 years or 29 and a half years or about 28 and a half years, it's better nearly 3 decades, so that the reader is also comfortable with reading such portions. So this is also important, that you are not actually doing what? You are actually not precise about the figure, correct about the figures. Rather, you are bringing in relativity and rounding of figures. Next is of really huge importance and missed by many. Write tightly. When we say write tightly, it is always easy to write loosely. बातें बहुत सारी की जा सकती हैं, लिखा बहुत सारा कुछ जा सकता है. नतीजा क्या होगा? बहुत लंबा लिख दिया जाएगा. नतीजा क्या होगा? आप जो हैं वो ज़्यादा छप नहीं सकेंगे. आप क्या कर रहे हैं? आपने लूज लिख दिया है, लंबी स्टोरी हो गई है. एडिटर तंग पड़ेगा, छापेगा नहीं, सोचेगा क्या काटूं या ना काटूं. आप क्या करते हैं? जब आप कुछ लिख लेते हैं, आपको बड़ी परेशानी होती है कि ये भी इंपॉर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन है, ये भी इंपॉर्टेंट इन्फॉर्मेशन है. आप क्या काटते हैं? लिखा हुआ काटना फ्रैंकली बहुत ही मुश्किल होता है. और कुछ रिपोर्टर्स या फीचर राइटर्स तो इतने पर्टिकुलर होते हैं कि जी हमारा ये वर्ड क्यों काटा गया, ये वर्ड मैंने इसलिए यूज किया था, इससे ये मैसेज कम्युनिकेट होना था. सो लिखने का मतलब हरगिज ये नहीं है कि whatsoever you have written is the final and nothing can be changed in that. So write tightly in order to avoid that your important message or important text is deleted by the other person. Avoid it. Writing tightly requires you cut all kinds of extra informations, and you need to do what? That you become a professional writer through murdering your own text. You have to delete your own text. Cut out some of the favorites even if you want to bring it to some proper length. Eventually, you will be coming up with what is necessary. There are 3 rules which you should be actually following. The first one is never write a paragraph where a sentence will do, and never write a long word where a short word can do. That's important. If you think that there is some extra word, cut it. For instance, in spite of, you can do it with writing simple despite. So instead of having 2 words, go for 1 word. The third, stick religiously to the assigned word length. आपको बता दिया जाता है कि 500 लफ्ज लिख लीजिएगा, 800 लफ्ज लिख लीजिएगा. You should be doing what? You should be writing that only. This will force you to cut out the non-essential information and avoid detours. You have gone to other areas which are unnecessary and that might be interesting to you, but that will detract the focus of the story by detracting the reader. By actually deleting the raw material, you are actually deleting quotes, and you're actually doing it with your own hands instead of the third person is doing. By this, if you are bringing all the information, you will be ending up not with a story, rather with a mess. Remember, in composing a story, you only want to illustrate anecdotes to the shortest possible length. कम से कम लेंथ में इस्तेमाल कीजिए, ये ना हो कि वो आपके लिए लेंथ जो वर्ड्स की है वो भी खा जाए. They say, I should not be wasting this quote. If this quote is going to cost you your article, then there is nothing you can do about it. आइसबर्ग आपने सुना होगा इसके बारे में. एक बहुत बड़ा आइसबर्ग होता है कि आपको एक छोटा सा उसकी टिप नजर आ रही होती है, नीचे बहुत बड़ा आइस क्यूब होता है. आपके राइटअप ऐसे होने चाहिए कि वर्ड्स एक टिप ऑफ आइसबर्ग हों, बाकी आइडिया उनके नीचे हो, so that the readers can understand those well. About this, a few writers say, I'm quoting just one, vigorous writing is concise. A sentence should contain no unnecessary words. A paragraph, no unnecessary sentences. For the same reason, the drawing should have no unnecessary lines, and a machine, no unnecessary parts. Simple. एक ड्राइंग आप बनाते हैं, वो ड्राइंग में आप एक्स्ट्रा लाइंस, एक्स्ट्रा पेंट नहीं डालते, बल्कि सिर्फ आप क्या करते हैं, जो रिक्वायर्ड हैं वो आप इस्तेमाल करते हैं. विलियम शंक ने ये कहा, देयर आर अदर कोट्स बाय रसल हेशलमैन एंड आइजैक बिशविस सिंगर, so you can read them. The main role of the writer is never to pity your manuscript. मैंने ये लिख दिया is never a case. Don't do it, because obviously you are actually doing what? You are actually creating a problem for your own self. इसका मतलब हरगिज ये नहीं है कि आपने जो एक्स्ट्रा है वो काट दिए हैं. इसका मतलब ये है कि जब आपने काट दिए हैं तो आपने एक्स्ट्रा काटे हैं, जो नेसेसरी हैं वो नहीं काटे. आपके राइटअप में बिकॉज ऑफ व्हाट, यूजिंग लेस वर्ड्स, राइटिंग टाइटली, आप क्या कर सकते हैं कि कलर स्पाइस डाल सकते हैं. इसका मतलब हरगिज ये नहीं है कि आप जो हैं वो सारी की सारी जो खूबसूरती है राइटअप की वो ख़त्म करते हैं. सिंपल सा एक वर्ड हो सकता है इन्वॉल्वमेंट, आप इसको सिंगल कोर्स में कर दीजिए, इसका मानी किसी हद तक चेंज हो जाएगा. एवरीबडी विल लाइक टू नो कि व्हाई दिस इज सो. You have to do what? You have to bring colors to your writing through different ways. It does not mean that you should not be adding colors to your write-ups. And if you do not do that, you're actually doing what? You're coming up with a dull and drab write-ups. Uska natija kya niklega कि whenever you're describing something which is you are really interested about it, you try to bring in it a sense of space and time. And if personalities are involved, you're actually highlighting a particular aspect which is of a huge interest. So do it. And it does not mean that if you're deleting something, you delete what? The color, or what we should say, that you are actually taking out the brightness from your article. Consequently, your write-ups should have what? Should have colors in those. Your write-ups should have interesting anecdotes in those. And there are certain people who say that in a good story, a paranoid schizophrenic does not just hear imaginary voices. He hears them say, go and kill a policeman. You have to consider that a person who is writing something which is of a huge value, you're actually coming up with that with a sense that you're transferring colors. Another thing, write the way you speak. I'm talking to you. My write-up should talk to you. It should not look alien to you. इसका एक बेहतर तरीका जो इसको करने का है, बहुत सारे असूल हैं, लेकिन जब कई राइटर्स लिख रहे होते हैं तो साथ साथ बोल भी रहे होते हैं. बोलने से मुराद ये नहीं है कि दे आर स्पीकिंग लाउडली, बल्कि their lips are moving. So when you write something, try to visualize, try to speak through your lips, or otherwise if you have developed. And when you have written, read it to yourself. If it does not sound well to you, it means what? It means that there is somewhere a problem. You need to actually read to yourself so that your write-ups are actually doing what they are actually speaking to you. The writing should flow with grace, pace and clarity. आप कहते हैं ना कि फलां बहुत अच्छे तरीके से, स्मूथ तरीके से बात करता है, तो ये भी कहा जाता है कि his write-up is a smooth write-up and you should be doing it like you're speaking. Next time whenever you're writing, read it as well so that you know what you are actually writing to yourself. If a sentence does not sound well to you, read it, change it, whatsoever you feel, you have to assume that it is sounding well. One of the things you need to consider whenever you're writing, that your reader does not know, but you have to care about his knowledge later. The cruelty is, assume the readers do not know and you don't care about it. And if you do this, later, then you apply the second principle that your reader knows it and you need to improve it, then obviously you can do it what? You can improve it further. So the second forces make the story interesting. It should not just appeal to the hardcore who care deeply about the issue, but to other readers as well. Two assumptions are there: that the reader does not know anything about the topic and the reader does not care either. That is what you have to consider. And obviously with this you can come up with better suggestions, and suggestions which are of huge value. Even those who do not care about your article will find a lot more to interest them, a lot more that is there for them, for their society, if you are constantly improving and if you are constantly looking to top the writers list. That is actually through your hard work, through your determination, coupled with your natural talents. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum.